He's doing really good. Aren't you, buddy? He's being a good boy. Yeah, you've been a good boy. You don't like that camera, huh? Hey guys, I am the president of Chickenlandia, and I'm joining you today from Chickenlandia to talk about some very simple things that you can do if you have a chicken that is sick or injured. Now, I've been saying for a while that I am going to talk about some homeopathic options for your chickens, and today I'm going to introduce some of that, and then hopefully at a later date I can take you guys to my homeopath's office and we can talk even more in depth about homeopathy for chickens. And I want to just take a minute to say that I realize that homeopathics are not for everybody. You might say, homeopathy? That's a bunch of hogwash. And that's okay. What I will say to you is this isn't for you, and you will need to find different options, which is fine. I am so okay with that. But for me, I myself have been using homeopathy for many years. I do believe it has benefits. I have seen some pretty awesome turnarounds with it. So it's just something that I like to incorporate into my chicken care. And I also use it on myself and on my family. Of course, do your own research, always. I am not a veterinarian. I am giving you suggestions according to what has worked for me. There it is. My disclaimer. Now, Philippe is really crowing a lot today, so I hope you can hear me. He just really feels threatened when I'm out here, but he's too much of a chicken. He heard me. To really do any damage, and he's a little guy, so I keep forgiving him. So if you've been following me on Instagram or Facebook, you know that I've had some illness and some injury happen in my flock this year. I think most of us have had the experience where you go out into your chicken coop and there is a chicken maybe in the corner, maybe huddled up in a nest box, and they're just very listless. They're not really moving. They're kind of droopy looking. Their wings are droopy. Their tails are drooping, and they just do not look well. Another scenario we might have is coming out to the chicken coop and finding an injured chicken, either by a predator attack, or maybe there was some type of accident, or maybe there was a fight in the flock. But you may come across the same kind of thing where you have a chicken that is so injured that it's really not doing well, and you can tell it's time to do something about it. So my number one thing that I tell people to do when they come across these two scenarios is immediately separate your chicken from their flock. Now, I know chickens are flock animals and they like to be around each other, but when a chicken is sick or injured, they're really in danger of being attacked by their own flock. And I know that's an awful thing to think about, but it does happen. The reason why sometimes it's so hard to tell when a chicken is starting to come down with an illness is because they hide it. They don't want the flock to know that they are not doing well, because weakness in a flock will be handled by the other chickens in the flock because they see that as making their flock more vulnerable to predators or whatnot. So now, if it's not too badly injured and there is a chicken that you know is not going to attack it or hurt it because it's injured, you can put that chicken together with your injured chicken to keep it company. But if your chicken is sick, I really recommend not doing that, because another reason why we want to separate the chicken is because it might be contagious to the rest of your flock. Now, of course, if you have an injured chicken, at this point you're going to have to treat that injury. I don't want to get in too much about how to treat an injury because all injuries are different. That might be something where you need to go online and do some research. And there's so many awesome resources for chicken keepers online in how to treat an injury. Now, in the winter, I bring my chickens inside the house because I don't want them to have to work on staying warm, especially overnight. So I bring them in. My place that I keep them in the house is a shower stall in our downstairs bathroom. And they could really just focus on getting better. Whether a chicken is injured or sick, it's good to keep them hydrated and give them a little bit of boost of vitamins and probiotics just to boost their immunity while they're healing from whatever is going on. So what I do is I put a vitamin and electrolyte solution in their water, and hopefully if they're drinking on their own, they will get that, and that will give them a little bit of a boost. There's even recipes online where you can make your own electrolytes, and you could also give plain whole milk yogurt for their probiotics if they are eating on their own. So I don't know about you guys, but if I'm sick or if I had an accident, I really would want some comfort food. And chickens also need that. So that is the other thing that I recommend. Once you've brought them inside, if they're eating and drinking on their own, you want to give them a special treat just to boost them, kind of bring life back into them. Things like scrambled eggs, hard-boiled eggs, whole milk, plain yogurt. Those are really good ones. Of course, mealworms or grubs are really good. Or maybe something like a little bit of warm oatmeal, something that just will really entice them to be interested in food. Because if they can eat on their own, then they really have more of a chance to overcome whatever is ailing them. So maybe you've brought them in, you've put them in a warm, dark spot, you've offered them food and water, but they're not drinking and they're not eating. This, of course, is worrisome. So if they're in shock, you might want to just give them a little bit of time and see if they come out of it. But if they're not coming out of it on their own, after a while, you may want to get a syringe, put something yummy in it. My go-to in this situation is raw egg yolk.
So right now I'm feeding him egg yolk with some probiotics and electrolyte water. It's mixed together. And I'm just giving it to him really slowly because it's super easy to actually get it into their lungs by accident. You don't want to do that because that would be real bad news. And he's doing really good. Aren't you, buddy? He's being a good boy. Yeah, you're being a good boy.
Now, if they're not drinking on their own at that point, then that's more of an emergency situation that I'm really not equipped to advise you about on a YouTube video. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not a doctor. I am not a biologist. So it's important then to decide what you're going to do, whether you need to take them to the vet or euthanize them or whatever you decide. So you've got them inside, you've offered them some food, you're keeping them comfortable. Now's the time when you want to start thinking about what kind of supportive care do I want to give my chickens. Now, I've been talking about homeopathics a lot lately, and this is where I would introduce some homeopathics and maybe some flower remedies into the scenario. The number one thing I would do whether or not I had a sick chicken or I had a chicken that had been injured, is I will use a product called Rescue Remedy. Very appropriately named. All you have to do to administer it is to put a drop or two into their food or water or into their feeding syringe. Another thing you can do is you can put a drop on the chicken's back and just kind of rub it into their skin, and that should help too. And this is just a great way to calm them down in a situation that is very stressful. And you know what? This is human grade. You can take this too. I use it a lot. So let's say that you have an injured chicken and that chicken is suffering from shock or had a big fright. There are 2 homeopathics that I suggest starting out with. The first one is called arnica. So this is a very popular homeopathic. You've probably seen it in different formulas, maybe for back pain or, spraying something. But it can help with bruising, it can help with shock. So what I would do is just take 1 pellet, and if you've ever seen, this is a Boiron tube. The way that you do this is you just twist it, and 1 little pellet shows up inside, and you can take that and put that into their food or into their water, and they will get the dose that way. Another homeopathic that I suggest, especially if there was a big fright involved, which usually there is, this is called aconite. It's a very widely used homeopathic. You should be able to find it wherever you can find other homeopathics. And same way, I would dose it the same way. You might notice when you go to purchase your homeopathics that there are different potencies available. I always start with a 30C potency. It's a good, safe potency to start with, and that's what I do. There are some thoughts that once there is a respiratory illness within a flock, then that whole flock is basically infected. So I am in a position where chickens do not leave my flock. Once they come here, they stay here. And that's how I like it. Not everybody keeps chickens that way. Some people sell chickens, they have breeding programs, and in that situation, you have to use your own judgment about whether or not you would want to treat a respiratory illness or consider some other options. So that's a situation where you'd have to do your own research. Both Pikachu and Philippe had like this raspy breathing. They were breathing hard. You could just hear the crud moving around in there. It was like... And I thought, oh my goodness, they are really bad off. And honestly, I thought that they were going to die. But I called my homeopath and she told me about a remedy called Antimonium crudum. And this remedy is so cool because the way I remember that it's for this particular type of respiratory issue is that it's called crudum. So I think crud. Antimonium crudum. So they got all that crud in their respiratory passages, in their nasal passages, and I dosed it just like I would dose for an injury. I put a pellet in their water. That was a few weeks ago, but just look at them now. Somebody laid an egg behind me. Did you lay an egg, Lacey? Lacey laid an egg. Chickens are for everyone. So whether or not you're a person that would immediately take a sick chicken to the vet, or you're somebody that really needs to find some options on what you can do at home, I fully support you. Some people don't even have access to avian veterinarians, and I believe that they should still be able to have chickens. A lot of people can't afford to take their chickens to the vet, and I still believe that they should be able to have chickens. Lacey's being really loud. Okay.